Good, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this City of Lake Forest Park City Council special meeting for Tuesday, April 30th, 2024 to order. Do I hear excuse me, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And I would entertain a motion for adoption of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? The record show that the five council members signified by saying aye. Thank you. And we are on to public comments, and I'll read a little corrections here. Public comments. This portion of the agenda is set aside for the public to address the council on agenda items. Comments are limited to the 3-minute time limit. Chief, do we have anyone in council chambers?
Yes.
Unless my eyes are failing me. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And then Mr. McLean, do we have anyone online?
Yes, we do have one sign up for Julian Anderson.
Mr. Anderson, Julian, welcome. Can you hear us?
I can, and I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Thanks for this opportunity. I live on 178th Street, and I have lived there since before this property was part of Lake Forest Park. And I'm very glad with your initiative to provide additional safety and speed control on that street. Long ago, those many decades ago, 178th Street was as primitive as Perkins Way and 180th are today. Narrow, not much shoulder, not much pavement quality. And then even 178th was an important connector. Traffic was light. Now, as your studies report, there are 1 million car trips a year on this street, and speeds seem to increase every year. In our years here, some spectacular things have happened with vehicles. One example, car drove off the road and made a serious impact with a big cedar tree in our yard. The cedar tree thrived. I doubt the car did. Example 2, probably a medical problem because the driver just kind of wandered off the road and ended up stuck in our front yard. And the example 3 was, and this was the most recent one, but not in the last year or two, a high-speed vehicle came down the hill, lost control as he came around the big bend, and somehow became airborne, sailed over the guardrail above the schoolyard and ran through a tree in the air and landed down in the schoolyard of Brookside School. Thankfully, it was at night, nobody around, but pretty spectacular. Obviously, from anecdotes and from your data, public safety on 178th needs improvement, and reduced vehicle speed is a central factor in doing that. So I support and I thank you for finding a way to have a 24/7 safety speed cam on this street this year. I think it's possible. I'm told it's possible this year and that you're working to that goal. So thank you very much and good luck with it. It should be easier.
Thank you very much for your comments, Julian. We sure appreciate it. Matt, is there anyone else in the?
That's all there is, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we're moving on. We have several items tonight. We have the Northeast 178th traffic speed safety cameras, speed analysis, and equity impact analysis. Mr. Hill, would you like to walk us through what we're talking about? Administrator Hill and I talked about whether it should be me presenting or him presenting. I think he will be briefer than I would be, so I appreciate your brevity, Phil.
For that, I'm going to read every word of the equity study to you. No. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I also have City Attorney Pratt is here, Chief Harden and Director Perigo. So if you have any legal questions, please, technical questions, we've got the whole team here. So What is before you tonight is consideration of an upgrade of the currently existing school zone traffic cameras on Northeast 178th Street. The one is near 33rd Avenue Northeast, which is designated as LFO2. And the other one at Brookside Boulevard / Northeast 180th Street designated as LFO1. These two cameras would be upgraded to a speed zone camera during non-school times. The goal of this upgrade is to enhance pedestrian and non-motorized travel, vehicle safety by slowing down motor vehicles and traffic in this area. Speed cameras along this section Northeast 178th Street was council goal number 8 from your March retreat, which discussed safety and possible traffic cameras in these locations. The Lake Forest Park Municipal Code 10.06.010 authorizes traffic cameras in areas designated by ordinance as a zone subject to specified restrictions and penalties on racing and race attendance. And LFPEMC 935.050 designates Northeast 178 from 25th Avenue Northeast to SR 104 as a no racing zone. As the mayor mentioned, within your packet are the completed engineering and equity analysis studies that are required by law before council can consider this action. Also, just as far as fiscal policy implications, as I've noted, we've spent about $13,100 in consultant fees to get to this point. Another $4,500 with King County in the 18 signs that we had to place per state law. There is no outlay of capital with Vera Mobility when they install cameras or do this type of work. That is all wrapped into that base fee that's identified in here on a monthly basis. But there is some anticipated additional costs in the future. If the numbers that have been shown in the speed study bear out, we anticipate we will need additional help in the police department as well as in the courts to review the vast amount of citations we are anticipating. The next steps for council is you've had the studies, hopefully reviewed them. You would then need to accept those 2 studies, and then your final action would be to take action on Resolution 24/1952, which would direct the administration to continue with procuring the appropriate software upgrades, et cetera, to get these signs up and operational. So I will stand for any questions as well as the rest of us who are here.
Colleagues, questions for Administrator Hill? I will be looking at the screen in case our friends online. Yes, Councilmember Riddle.
Thank you. For when they took the speeds, is it correct that that came from our speed identification sign? Is where that's what counted the speeds of the cars
There were-
going by?
Yes, and Vera
Okay.
Mobility provided some of that data as well. That came from the cameras, correct?
So that's
Yes.
folks on their best behavior. Because they have their speed feedback camera at that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Colleagues, Councilmember Goldman, Councilmember Saunders. Can't quite hear you, Ellen. Maybe try one more time. You're off. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm having a hard time with getting my headphones going, so it's kind of giving me trouble. I just had a question. Actually, a couple of citizens have asked me. I haven't seen the new signs myself, but did the no racing signs just go up last week?
They went up yesterday.
Yesterday. I guess we probably have spoken about this, why those were going up. I'm sure there's it's more of a warning, a forewarning of what's to come. Is that right? As far as the 24-hour speed cameras that are going to be going up?
So those signs have to go up no less than 30 days prior to activation of the speed camera. And they have to stay up in perpetuity. But so we have to have those up for 30 days. Then after 30 days, the camera could go into operation for providing warnings for 30 days or longer, and then into operation for giving out citations.
Okay. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I was giving the correct answer. She wanted to know how that was going to be enforced when it says no racing. If somebody's racing, they're not going to see the signs or pay attention to them. But if the cameras are in full force, then that makes sense. Thank you so much.
It would also give our officers the opportunity. It's just further back up outside of the location of the cameras. Then we can pick up people for racing or, you know, that individual car that might be racing all by itself.
Right. That
Which is
makes sense.
so I think legally they could do that anyway.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Goldman.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciated getting these studies. I'm glad we're taking a data-driven approach. I have two questions. The first, in the equity study, the contractor flagged a number of potential things for us to look at. And so does city staff have plans to address the things that were flagged in the equity study?
Honestly, council member, we will take a look at those in more detail when we've had time. We've had this since 4 o'clock on Friday, so no plans have been made, but we will be evaluating what came out of that study.
Okay, and the second, this is sort of a long term. I'm looking at the racing ordinance. I believe we've also declared that 522 and 104 are no racing zones. And so I'm wondering in the future, is this something we might do to upgrade, say, the red light cameras on 522 to speed cameras if the data shows, because it seems like that's where also a large number of collisions are.
So the state law through 2384 as will be adopted does not include speed cameras that's in the current law. And the mayor actually discussed this today, that probably a red light camera hybrid approach wouldn't work because both of those are 24/7. And so we'd probably be looking at, under the new legislation, speed cameras within the corridor. So there's the ability of 522 and 104 as state highways identified as public or local roads or city streets, I might say, that WashDOT does on an annual basis. We have the most current copy of that designation. We do fit that criteria. And so the next studies to be done would be looking at those two roads. And I think this, if you'll remember, this goes back to some previous requests that we've had from council to take a look at the speed studies. We'll get our own speed studies for 522 and 104 to take a look at and compare to what WashDOT did. So long story is those are the next two areas of focus, and what could come out of those are speed cameras within those two corridors.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Thank you, Councilmember. Colleagues, Deputy Mayor Bodie.
Yes, thank you very much. I know that to take advantage of this opportunity, which will be good for the city and good for public safety, it has taken a good amount of hustle and work. And so I want to say I appreciate the staff and consultant time that went into this. I also think both reports are very readable, very good, very well documented. I hadn't seen an equity study like that before, but I actually really appreciated the red, yellow, green kind of signals that Councilmember Goldman referred to. So I wanted to say I thought excellent job and excellent coverage of this issue. Another thing I'd add is Mr. Anderson talked about the history that residents of traffic and speeding and accidents that residents who live on 178th see. I also know other residents on 178th, and so he is not alone in having that experience. It is, I think, a development that would be quite welcome by the residents along 178th. So thank you.
Thank you. I would point out the mayor's help in this. I mean, if it wasn't for his creativity and pushing, I don't know that we'd be here today, honestly. He found a way, and working with legal counsel and all of us, I mean, we got here. So it was definitely a team effort on the administration's part. So
Thank you to the mayor and legal counsel as well.
If I may on point, Mr. Hill and the staff reimagined what was possible. I just provided the urgency to this, and it was a team effort, and they did a fantastic job of getting this across the line. I will also note too that this is the first study of this kind in Washington State, and it's going to set the bar for other studies. And so we wanted to make sure, even on last Friday afternoon, Phil and I were on the phone for a very, very long time, trying to make sure that things were absolutely where it needed to be to represent the city and also to represent the better and greater good of the state. So, Mr. Furtoni, you had a question.
Thank you very much. And yeah, thank you again, Administrator Hill, for spearheading all this and presenting the material. And again, I want to echo my colleagues' kudos to this team, both staff and council members and the mayor working together to get this over the finish line, as it were. And I also wanted to point out that both studies are really well done. I love the engineering study because it considers several different kinds of criteria to apply to figure out what the most optimal setting for the camera would be. And the equity study, oh my goodness, not only is it looking at the equity of, what the effect on the residents of that area is, but also the commuters that pass through that area, as well as on staff time itself. And I know that one of the flags is literally, how are you going to administer all the citations you're going to get? And it's, as I say, this is a good problem to have because it means that we're working to actually improve safety. And so having that volume of citations suggests that it was necessary to have such a camera in the first place. So would this be an appropriate time to accept the studies?
I'd entertain a motion.
Okay, I'd like to move to.
I'm sorry.
I'm all good.
If there are any, let's ask, if there are any other questions, colleague, I apologize. Larry or Ellen, any other questions or comments before we move? Okay, thank you very much. I apologize, please.
Not a problem. I'd like to move to accept, do we do them one at a time or both?
I do one at a time.
One at a time.
Okay, to accept, let's see, how was it titled? The Transpo Group's extending operational hours of the Northeast 178th Street Traffic Safety Camera Study.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the transpose. What the terminology here is, 178th Street speed analysis. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Are there any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much, colleagues.
And I'd also like to move then to accept the, the Eco Northwest Traffic Speed Safety Camera Equity Impact Analysis.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the Eco Northwest Traffic Speeds Safety Camera Equity Impact Analysis. Is there any further discussion? I have to give a quick shout out to our friend Jolie from Eco Northwest. She put up with me for 90 minutes on Friday morning, trying to get some things sorted out here, and she did a fantastic job. So many thanks to her and to Dr. Aguilar, who spearheaded the project. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much, council. And with that, we're moving on to item B, resolution 24-1952, approving race zone traffic safety cameras pursuant to Lake Forest Park Municipal Code 10.06.010. Administrator Hill.
Well, before you tonight is the resolution that would put all this into motion. This is kind of technically your second touch, but you will need to waive your 3-touch rule to take action on this. And council does need to take action on this tonight. It's up to you, but if we want to meet all of our deadlines, we would request that council take action tonight on resolution 24-1952.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Colleagues, any questions of Administrator Hill regarding the Northeast 178th Street speed analysis? Okay, I would entertain a motion to suspend the 3-touch rule.
So moved in the, because we do need to move on this quickly in order to hit our deadline and actually activate these in time to be able to utilize the current code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in, I'm sorry, Mr. Furtoni.
And I want to echo Councilmember Riddle's point that it is basically to meet this June 6th deadline that the state has in which the rules change. And so to take advantage of our current situation and to save our residents some tax money, this is a really great opportunity that we shouldn't let pass.
Thank you, Vice Chair Furtoni. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of suspending the 3-touch rule on resolution 24-1952, say aye.
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 Are there any nays? The ayes have it. It passes unanimously. I'd entertain a motion for adoption of resolution 24/1952, approving race zone traffic safety cameras pursuant to Lake Forest Park Municipal Code 10.06.010.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Goldman.
Yeah, thanks. Something I neglected to say earlier is that I hope that, I know there will be a budget impact for the additional administration to review citations. My earnest hope is that this is a temporary increase and that we very quickly change people's driving behavior so that we no longer have an excessive number of citations. Otherwise, I'm supportive of this.
Thank you, Councilmember. Sage advice. Appreciate that. Any other comments? Yes, Councilmember Riddle.
I did have a question, and it's very minor, but on the third whereas, we do provide times for when the safety, the school safety cameras are operating. And I think that's not necessarily accurate, because I think Wednesdays are half days, so it's a different time. I was wondering if the council would entertain an amendment just to say operating, during arrival and dismissal times, just so we don't misrepresent that for any future folks looking at this. And maybe is that an issue to our administrator?
I was just gonna say those times were pulled directly from our website, so I assumed that they were accurate.
It needs to be amended.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hang on, we do have a problem.
And they may change it in the future too, so.
Colleagues on point. Thank you, Councilmember Riddle. I wonder too, whether it makes sense because sometimes the hours do change. Whether it makes sense to make sure that it's commensurate with the PD has the authority to change those hours. So I think it may be, this is more for informational
Mhm.
purposes. I'm paraphrasing here, I think, or reading between the lines, Councilmember Riddle. I think it would be useful for us to maybe define some language that is more flexible, so it's not hard coded, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Administrator Hill. I'll tell you what. Why don't we take a 5-minute recess? Or is everyone comfortable with that? Okay, thank you. I need some water.
You're welcome.
Very fine here. Here, we're having printer issues. Councilmember Goldman and Councilmember Saunders, do you have an email copy of this?
Just emailed.
Just
Yep.
emailed to you.
Yep,
Okay.
I just received it.
Okay, thank you. So the change here is to Councilmember Riddle's question is in the third whereas on Northeast 178th Street, there is currently a school zone for Brookside Elementary located between 35th Avenue Northeast and 37th Avenue Northeast with traffic safety speed cameras operating. And the change is when children are present or when warning flashers are active with a reduced speed of 20 miles per hour. That takes the vagaries of the time, the hours out of the mix. Should they
And
change?
I agree that that is my intent.
Okay.
For the amendment.
On point, colleagues, any questions about the change? Councilmember Goldman or Saunders? Nope. Colleagues on the dais? No. Okay, I'd entertain a motion for adoption of resolution.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, is there another addition on the second page? Oh. It was, okay,
Oh, the
Thank you.
superscript. Okay.
thank you.
Oh, it's probably just the track changes. Yeah, thank you very much. Entertain a motion for adoption of resolution 24/1952 as amended.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution 24/1952 as amended. Noting, since we're coming back into session, that the three touch rules already been suspended. Councilmember Goldman, comments?
Yes, just a point of order. Do we need to vote on the amendment itself?
I believe he got unanimous consent.
We do have unanimous consent. Thank you, Mr. Goldman.
He asked, no, said no.
Yeah,
That's unanimous.
appreciate
consent.
that. I think we're okay. Thank you for the question, though. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adoption of resolution 24/1952, resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake Forest Park, Washington, approving race zones, traffic safety cameras pursuant to Lake Forest Park Municipal Code 10.06.1010 as amended, signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much, council. And with that, because we can't have any additional items on that are not on the agenda in this special meeting, I believe I just want to say one more time, many, many thanks to staff, to Phil and Kim. Really, thank you. You all, and thank you, council, for your support in this. I know it was a huge lift for everyone. But this shows that there's opportunities for us because we're small and agile. So we do
Yes.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Ray.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
You as well.
Thank
Be
you.
well.
Thank you.